Hi everybody, welcome back to Three Sisters Homestead. Today we're in the kitchen and we're going to be making pumpkin pie. So my sister, when she bought her first house, these pie pans, this pumpkin pie one and an apple one, were in the kitchen, and she gave them to me. So this is the recipe that we're going to be using. We are going to use these optional items there. We're going to start off by breaking off the stem. So I'm going to take this over to the counter and I'm going to smack it on the counter to break it off. Nice. Just like that. And then we are going to cut them so that we can roast them. We are going to peel all of the seeds out and we're going to save these seeds so that we can roast those for a nice snack as well. We have all of our pumpkins cleaned out. I'll show you what these look like once you have them cleaned out. And then we're going to take them and face them down on a cookie sheet. So this is all of them. And we're going to put them in a 375-degree oven for about 30 minutes until the skin starts to peel off. Okay, and then we'll come back to you guys when those are ready. Pumpkins have been in here for about 40 minutes. We're going to take them out. We're going to let these cool down for a little while. We're going to make our crust while these cool down, and then we'll come back and peel these off. While our pumpkins cool down, we're going to make our pie crust. We already have one prepped. It was in the freezer, so we have that thawing out as well, but we need one more. So we're going to take 1 1/4 cup all-purpose flour, half a teaspoon of salt. So we're just going to mix that into the flour, that way it gets distributed well. We have our butter, our unsalted butter, pre-cubed here. And we're going to take it and put it in our flour. You can do this by hand, you can use a food processor, whatever you have, but you want your butter to stay in cubes because you don't want it to be melted, you want it to look like crumbs. Because if you do that and it's melted, you're not going to get a nice fluffy, flaky crust. So you want it to look about like that before you start adding your water. We are going to add a tablespoon of water at a time. You want your water to be ice cold. You don't want it to be warm water to melt that butter. You want it to be ice cold. I'm going to start with about 3 tablespoons. At this point, this is when I'm going to start using my hands. I want it to stick together. That is it. We are going to take just a handful of flour, a couple handfuls, and sprinkle it on the table to keep our pie crust from sticking to our surface. I'm going to take your pie crust and put it down. You want to have a little bit of flour on your hands, and you want to put flour on your rolling pin as well. First, I'm just going to lay it out a little, and then we're just going to roll it out. Again, we want to keep it from sticking, so I'm lifting it up, moving the flour a little. You can see our places in the crust where there are butter chunks. That's what we want. Just want to roll this out big enough to cover your pie pan. It should be big enough. Yep. And then we're just going to take it and we're going to put our pie crust into our pan. Just make sure that it forms to your pan. And if it's not quite covering the edge, just pull it out a little bit. I don't like the edge of my crust to be super thick anyway. And we're just going to trim off the excess around that's hanging over. And then that is ready for your filling. You can take a fork or you can do this with your hands. I like to use a fork just to get it started and then peel it off. We're just going to stick it right in the edge of the skin and peel it off. And you can do this with pretty much any winter squash if you want to get the skin off. What's left is the meat of the pumpkin. And we're just going to put it in our bowl. And we're going to do this with all of our pumpkin, and then we're going to puree it. Now that we have all of our pumpkins peeled, we're going to start by using a potato masher to break these down a little bit. Mash it as well as we can, and then we're going to use the immersion blender. And if you don't have an immersion blender, you can just use a regular stand blender. This is how you want it to look, just like a regular canned pumpkin puree. And we need 2 3/4 cup for our recipe. For now, we are going to put this in a container to freeze, and then use this and what's over on the counter for our pies. This will just be for a pie for Thanksgiving. 2 3/4 cup pumpkin in the bowl already. We're gonna add 3 eggs. We are going to add 3/4 cup sugar, 1 1/2 teaspoon cinnamon, 1/2 teaspoon of nutmeg, 1/4 a teaspoon of clove. When I made this last time, I only added the ginger. I didn't add the optional clove, but I thought it had a little bit too much ginger, and it says to add 1/4. So I'm just going to add just a tiny little bit, about 1/8 of a teaspoon. We need 3/4 of salt, teaspoon. And then we need 1 2/3 cup evaporated milk. This can of evaporated milk, when I measured it out, it was just enough, so we're just going to pour in the whole cup without measuring it, since I already know how much 1 can is. Stir it up a little bit, and then I am going to use my immersion blender's whisk attachment to make sure it gets nice and mixed. And then that is ready to pour into our pie crust. Okay, so now we're just going to take our pumpkin mixture and pour it right into our crust. There's a little bit extra in there because my counter is a little slanted. You can see this one, that side's fuller than this side. And I'm just going to leave it like that because my oven is a little off as well. So I put a cookie sheet under the rack where I'm putting this, just in case I spill it, because the first time I made one I did spill it. Okay, there we go. Now second one, because we did the second one off camera. Oops, see, there I go spilling a little bit. So that edge is gonna burn now. We're gonna leave these in there at 425, 15 minutes, and then we're gonna reduce the heat and we'll be back. Okay, so we are going to put it to 350 for 50 minutes. All right, our oven is going off. That one did start to spill over. I think we put a little bit too much butter in the crust. I'm gonna go ahead and take these out. They're still gonna be a little jiggly. Those are our pumpkin pies. Like I told you guys, when I spilled that one over a little bit, it was gonna burn, and it did. We were definitely expecting that. I think they turned out pretty well. This one, I really think we put a little too much butter in there, but that'll be right. It's just super flaky. That's gonna be it for this video. Please like and subscribe, and we'll see you guys in the next one.